Hey everyone, happy
Monday, guys.
For some people, it's a motivational Monday. For others, it's a mindful Monday. But if you're here with us on Say That channel, you know it's the Monday Rundown.
Say that, say that.
We in Winston love the Monday Rundowns because these are the shows where we get to talk about all the things we don't normally get to talk about on our Wednesday shows. Wednesday is earmarked for things in terms of business and entrepreneurship. So on Monday Rundowns, we get to talk about all sorts of things, all sorts of topics. Keep bringing the topics to us. You guys have been bringing us some great ones. And then we look to other thought leaders, other content creators about what their wisdom is about the subjects. And so that way, basically, we all learn and grow together.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. So let's dive into today's topic, guys.
How do we know when we're emotionally mature?
Wow. That's a very good one.
Great question. And I would say a lot of people probably are pointing fingers at many people they know. And they're like, you're not emotionally mature. You're not emotionally mature. But I would just like to remind us that that means there are three fingers pointing back at us. And so we should recall and have grace because we probably are lacking in some areas of emotional maturity as well.
That's a good point.
To me, I don't know if there's a how. I think I've said this before and I will say it one more time. I think it takes a very mature person, probably emotionally mature, to be able to identify the exact emotion that they're feeling in the moment that they're feeling it, and then be able to describe that feeling to someone else at the same time, like to do all that at the same time. So maybe that's how you know you've reached a certain level of emotional maturity, when you're able to identify and then identify and then share that emotion, or be eloquently share that emotion. Communicate that to somebody else. I think to me that would be a good sign.
I'm actually going to say I completely agree. I think it's about the awareness, certainly, and ability to explain what that is. Explain whatever that emotion is to somebody else. Yeah, I actually don't have anything else to add. I definitely think that's what it comes down to. Because I think that when you don't know what it is and you're just I think when you're unaware and maybe somebody else is able to recognize something, but you find yourself unable to express it, that's a lack of maturity in that area. So but who do we got today?
Well, I was gonna say one other thing I will add to that is and also recognizing that you can have more than one emotion happening for you at the same time. I think people think that you should only be going through one emotion, but that actually is, I think, what holds us back from being able to express our emotions to people, is because we think that it should be simple and it's just like one thing, when the truth is probably is multiple emotions that you're feeling at the same time.
Well, it's funny. You said same time, or just you might be moving through emotions and you're not staying in a certain state.
No, I think you could be feeling the same at the exact same time, be feeling multiple emotions. So one particular instance, I remember one of the reasons why I left my job, I had a lot of different emotions, but there was one particular incident that happened, and immediately after that incident, I felt a lot of emotions at the exact same time. I felt incredulous. I felt betrayed. I felt sad. I felt frustrated. There was definitely anger there too, but the anger came from the frustration and the betrayal and the disappointment. All of that was happening at the same time for me. It wasn't that I was moving through one and then the other. They were all at the same time. And it's also probably what made me feel very overwhelmed, because I was feeling all of these at the same time. Was I feeling one particular emotion stronger than another at different points of time? Sure. And if that's how you equate
I was gonna say that sounds like a better explain. I don't know if and maybe it's just something I can't relate to necessarily.
I was gonna say, I was like, you might just have never recognized that for yourself, but I know for me, I have felt multiple emotions at the same time.
Okay.
All right. So we are going to hear from the School of Life. You guys know that we are fans of them. They always break things down in a way that's really easy for us to understand. So I'm excited to hear what they've got to say.
Take us to school.
20 signs that you are emotionally mature. You realize that most of the bad behavior of other people really comes down to fear and anxiety, rather than, as it's generally easier to presume, nastiness or idiocy. You loosen your hold on self-righteousness and stop thinking of the world as populated by either monsters or fools. It makes things less black and white at first, but in time, a great deal more interesting. You learn that what's in your head can't automatically be understood by other people. You realize that, unfortunately, you're going to have to articulate your intentions and feelings with the use of words, and can't fairly blame other people for not getting what you mean until you've spoken calmly and clearly. You learn that, remarkably, you do sometimes get things wrong. With huge courage, you take your first faltering steps towards, once in a while, apologizing. You learn to be confident, not by realizing that you're great, but by learning that everyone else is just as stupid, scared, and lost as you are. We're all making it up as we go along, and that's fine. You forgive your parents because you realize that they didn't put you on this earth in order to insult you. They were just painfully out of their depth and struggling with demons of their own. Anger turns, at points, to pity and compassion. You learn the enormous influence of so-called small things on mood: bedtimes, blood sugar and alcohol levels, degrees of background stress, and so on. And as a result, you learn never to bring up an important, contentious issue with a loved one until everyone is well rested, no one is drunk, you've had some food, nothing else is alarming you, and you're not rushing to catch a train. You give up sulking. If someone hurts you, you don't store up the hatred and the hurt for days. You remember we'll all be dead soon. You don't expect others to know what's wrong. You tell them straight, and if they get it, you forgive them. And if they don't, in a different way, you forgive them too. You cease to believe in perfection in pretty much every area. There aren't any perfect people, perfect jobs, or perfect lives. Instead, you pivot towards an appreciation of what is, to use the psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott's exemplary phrase, good enough. You realize that many things in your life are at once quite frustrating and yet, in many ways, eminently good enough. You learn the virtues of being a little more pessimistic about how things will turn out, and as a result, emerge as a calmer, more patient, and more forgiving soul. You lose some of your idealism and become a far less maddening person. You learn to see that everyone's weaknesses of character are linked to counterbalancing strengths. Rather than isolating their weaknesses, you look at the whole picture. Yes, someone is rather pedantic, but they're also beautifully precise and a rock at times of turmoil. Yes, someone is a bit messy, but at the same time brilliantly creative and very visionary. You realize, truly realize, that perfect people don't exist, and that every strength will be tagged to a weakness. You fall in love a bit less easily. It's difficult, in a way. When you were less mature, you could develop a crush in an instant. Now, you're poignantly aware that everyone, however externally charming or accomplished, would be a bit of a pain from close up. You develop loyalty to what you already have. You learn that you are, rather surprisingly, quite a difficult person to live with. You shared some of your earlier sentimentality towards yourself. You go into friendships and relationships offering others kindly warnings of how and when you might prove a challenge. You learn to forgive yourself for your errors and foolishness. You realize the unfruitful self-absorption involved in simply flogging yourself for past mistakes. You become more of a friend to yourself. Of course you're an idiot, but you're still a lovable one, as we all are. You learn that part of what maturity involves is making peace with the stubbornly childlike bits of you that will always remain. You cease trying to be a grown-up at every occasion. You accept that we all have our regressive moments, and when the inner 2-year-old you raises its head, you greet them generously and give them the attention they need. You cease to put too much hope in grand plans for the kind of happiness you expect could last for years. You start to celebrate the little things that go well. You realize that satisfaction comes in increments of minutes. You're delighted if one day passes by without too much bother. You take a greater interest in flowers and in the evening sky. You develop a taste for small pleasures. What people in general think of you ceases to be such a concern. You realize that the minds of others are muddled places, and you don't try so hard to polish your image in everyone else's eyes. What counts is that you and one or two others are okay with you being you. You give up on fame and start to rely on love. You get better at hearing feedback. Rather than assuming that anyone who criticizes you is either trying to humiliate you or is making a mistake, you accept that maybe it would be an idea to take a few things on board. You start to see that you can listen to a criticism and survive it without having to put on your armor and deny that there was ever a problem. You realize the extent to which you tend to live day by day in too great a proximity to certain of your problems and issues. You remember more and more that you need to get out and get a perspective on the things that pain you. You take more walks in nature. You might get a pet. They don't fret like we do. And you appreciate the distant galaxies above us in the night sky. You recognize how your distinctive past colors your response to events and learn to compensate for the distortions that can result. You accept that because of how your childhood went, you have a predisposition to exaggerate in certain areas. You become suspicious of your own first impulses around particular topics. You realize sometimes not to go with your first feelings. When you start a friendship, you realize that other people don't principally want to know your good news, so much as gain an insight into what troubles and worries you, so that they can, in turn, feel less lonely with the pains of their own hearts. You become a better friend because you see that what friendship is really about is a sharing of vulnerability.
Our emotional barometer is a tool that can help us to more clearly explain our moods. Click the link on screen now to find out more.
That was really great. So I took a
Yeah.
lot of notes. I took a lot of notes because there were a lot and they were going fast. Do you want to start? Was there anyone in particular that stood out to you?
A few of them actually. I want to say through 3 through 7 or 8. I definitely recognize or could see myself in some of those, and how I relate to what they. I don't have them written down, but definitely I associated with those.
You recognize that you get things wrong. 4 is that you learn to be confident. You just realize that everybody's just trying to figure it out. 5, you forgive your parents.
Oh, that one for a lot. That one as well. Yeah.
6, you never give up on an important issue until everyone
got some rest and assessment.
So everyone is fed and well rested and not in a rush. 7, you stop sulking because you don't expect others to know what's wrong, and instead you share what's going on for you. And 8 is you stop believing in perfection. Appreciate what is good.
Where it is good enough, and then I want to say a few of the teens as well. I actually stopped keeping track then and just started wanting more to focus as to what he was saying. And then certainly the last one, though, even specific to the aspect of friendship and recognizing that what people are looking for in that is to see where their pain points and maybe yours. I call it the mirror effect, or not completely, but just the idea that people you're attracting to your life or in some way mirror some aspect of your behavior.
So funny.
Or way of being.
You see it as mirroring. I see it as when you share, then you're not alone. If you share, if I share my vulnerabilities, you share your vulnerabilities, then at least now you've shared them, and so you're not alone in that vulnerability. A lot of times, to your point about mirroring, you recognize that you're maybe not the only one going through the same vulnerability.
Yes.
Sometimes not. Sometimes the friend can't resonate with it. But...
No. The way I like the way you're explaining it, because it's like seeing again what you're seeing in the mirror. So to your point, if you're sharing a vulnerability and that is reflected back to you, through that person's lens and experience, then to your point, you can find some commonality in that. But how they positioned it or expressed it to me is the idea where someone's looking for that, so they're not necessarily, and this obviously is to an individual basis. I don't think everyone's like looking to negatively find things in people,
Right.
but I do think there is a sense of, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And we look for that in others.
Right.
But they made a lot of great points as a whole for sure. They did an amazing job.
I really like 17. You get better at receiving feedback, and instead of putting up an armor and being defensive, you actually accept that maybe there is something that is being said that you can take a part of.
Away from it.
For me, that was reading a book called Taking, what is it, like Incredible Response? No, gosh, there's a book. If you know the book, you know what I'm talking about. But it's like, not accountability, extreme accountability. No. Oh, I can't think of it. But essentially, just recognizing that you are taking responsibility for everything that happens, every decision, good or bad, every result of the decision, good or bad.
You create your reality.
Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's going to come to me in the next episode. I'll let you guys know then. Anyway, I just recognize that working with people, especially in the medical field, where people are expected to be perfect and to know everything, people become extremely defensive regarding feedback. And I recognize that working with people, I could actually view that maturity. I could see the maturity in my students even as they started to move through feedback and what that meant for them. So anyway, that for me was one that like I viscerally could
relate to.
Yeah, could relate to, exactly. Nice. Anyway, this is good. Look, let us know what you guys resonated with. I mean, there were 20 of them. So I love that. P.S. 11 was also really interesting.
Yeah, which numbers jumped out at you guys?
Fall in love a little bit less easily. And I was like, I have to think about that one. I think of myself as a hopeless romantic. And yet, is that actually happening for me? Interesting. All very interesting. Let us know your thoughts. This has been amazing. Please remember to subscribe, like, share if you thought it was interesting, so we know what your friends really think is really helpful for them to know as they navigate their own maturity level and their emotions. We'll see you next week. And as always, remember that you deserve a good life. Say that.
Say that. Have a great week, you guys.